February 21st, 2012 at 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Kevin, if you'll take the roll call.
Mr. Dickerson. Here. Ms. Gerber.
Here.
Mr. Pollak.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Thacker.
Here.
Mr. Elliott. Or Ms. Elliott.
Miss Elliott, here. It's you this week.
Okay. If we could all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Everybody have a copy of the February 6th minutes? This time, I'd like to have a motion from council to adopt.
Can I request that someone make an amendment that I was present at that meeting?
Can I have someone?
Motion we amend this list right here.
February 6th. Show Ms. Wortman, myself, and Mr.
I think that's what she's saying. She's not on there. She needs to be on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
You beat me.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Dickerson.
Yay.
Ms. Gerber.
Yep.
Mr. Pollak.
Yay.
Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Thacker.
Abstain.
Ms. Elliott.
Yay.
All right. We will go moving on to the mayor's report. We have a lot of information to cover tonight. So for those who come that would like to speak, I'm going to read the rules of council for public speaking, and then I'll open the floor for public input. Rules of council for public speaking. All persons shall furnish their names, addresses, and the reason for their appearance prior to being recognized. Said information shall be recorded in the official minutes. No person may be permitted to speak any longer than 3 minutes at one time on one matter. The mayor or his designee shall monitor the time limit. No person may speak more than one time on any one subject at one meeting. No person shall be permitted to speak a second time until all guests that wish to be heard on a subject have been heard. The mayor may refuse the floor to any persons where the tactics are obviously to become abusive or discourteous and not in the best interest of council. In the event that the mayor determines that a member of the audience becomes too loud, abusive, and or disruptive, that person may be asked to leave the council chambers. In the event that the abusive member of the audience refuses to leave or modify his or her behavior, the mayor may direct that an officer of the police department remove said person from the meeting. Rules A, B, and C above may be suspended to allow additional public comment. All questions from the public will be addressed to the mayor. So that being said, I'm going to open the floor for public input. So if anybody would like to speak to council, they could come up to the podium, state their name, their address, and their reason for addressing council. Hearing none, I guess we'll go right into the guests of council. Our first guest is Becky McClatchy, who is with Claremont County. Welcome, Becky. Please stand.
Good evening. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm Becky McClatchy. I'm with Claremont Soil and Water Conservation District. And I'm here tonight to just follow up with council on the Balanced Growth Initiative. I know that, I guess you're on your third reading of the Balanced Growth Plan.
Yes.
And just wondering if there are any questions about the program or the plan at this point in time. We are asking resolutions of support from each of the jurisdictions, as you're well aware. And up to this point in time, we have received resolutions of support from all the jurisdictions in the planning area except for one. But that puts us above the threshold that we needed. We needed at least 75% of the jurisdictions in the planning area, and that 75% by land area and population to approve the plan to be sent for state review and for the incentives to be taken. So we met that threshold, so that's good news for everyone in the planning area. And if there are no other questions, I guess the only question I have now is to ask if the village would be willing to submit a resolution supporting the plan.
Anybody from council have anything you'd like to add or ask them? If not, we'll go ahead and I'll read Amelia Village, Ohio Resolution R 2012-01, a resolution declaring support from Amelia Village in Clermont County, Ohio for the Middle East Fork Watershed Balanced Growth Initiative, and this is the third reading. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt.
Make a motion to adopt.
Second. And a first and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Dickerson.
Yay.
Ms. Gerber.
Yay.
Mr. Pollard.
Yay.
Mr. Campbell.
Yay.
Mr. Thacker.
Yay.
Ms. Zoya.
Yay.
Passes 6-0.
I'd like to thank council very much. We're really excited about this initiative, and we'll be holding a meeting on March 14th. And I think I did include your email on that.
Okay.
And anyone from the jurisdictions as representatives, you're welcome to attend. But at that meeting, we'll provide an update of where the state review process is at, and also discuss implementation and what your interests are in terms of implementing some of the tools and strategies. So more to come. But
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our second guest of council is Brenda Winmeyer. Is she here? She will be here to discuss the TIF legislation, correct?
Right, do you want me to introduce?
Sure.
This is Brenda Weaver. She's with Peck Schaefer. They do a lot of tax increment financing and bond work. She's here to talk about what a TIF is and explain to you guys how a TIF would work if you are interested in using a TIF for any improvements that might be done to Main Street with the improvement to the turning lane for Woodland subdivision. So she's here just to give you some background and answer any questions you might have about the TIF.
Good evening. Thank you, Julia. I am Brenda Weimer with Peck Schaefer. Tax increment financing. It is an economic development incentive tool that is available to several political subdivisions across the state. Municipalities, townships, and counties have the ability to utilize this tool. What happens when you use that? Taxes are exempted. Real property taxes are exempted for any increase in value from the date of the resolution forward. So any existing value will continue to exist and will continue to pay taxes. So existing taxes will not change. Only any future development that increases the value of the property will be exempted. Most of the time, those property taxes that are exempted are replaced with service payments in lieu of taxes in exactly the same amount as the property taxes that were exempted. Those monies then go into a special fund at the village rather than being redistributed to the taxing entities that are responsible for the levies being on the duplicate. That money is available to you to make infrastructure improvements that are necessary either for the development or because of the development. So if there are certain public infrastructure improvements that are needed in order for the development to occur or to occur at that location, that money is supposed to be used for those. Road improvements, water, sewer, basic infrastructure improvements. By the same token, if a development is coming that is going to impact your existing infrastructure, but infrastructure improvements are not necessarily needed for that development to come, but it's going to have an effect on your existing infrastructure or lack thereof, such that you need to make infrastructure improvements for the community because of the impact that that development is having, you may also make those infrastructure improvements with that money. The money may also be used to compensate school districts that are affected by the property tax exemption. And depending on what kind of TIF you utilize, there may be the option or the requirement that you make compensation payments to other jurisdictions, in your case, possibly the county, depending on which kind of TIF you utilize. TIFs are available for a variety of projects. As I understand it, the project that is being talked about in Amelia is a commercial-only project. There's no residential properties involved in the area that's being discussed as being exempted. So that, under the current statutes, is the easier type of TIF to implement, one that involves only commercial properties. But you can include residential properties in a TIF. There's just a lot more requirements and a lot more paperwork to do that. Unless there are specific questions about that, I won't really talk about those kinds of TIFs tonight, since that's not what's being proposed. You can exempt the property for up to 100% for up to 30 years. If you exempt it for more than 10 years or more than 75% of its value, you have different rules with respect to notification and compensation to the school district. So if you choose to exempt the property for 10 years or less in an amount of 75% of its value or less, you need to provide the school district and the joint vocational school district with 14 days notice that you intend to do this. They don't have approval rights, and you don't have mandatory compensation obligations to them. However, should the project generate more than $1 million in payroll, if you had an income tax, you would potentially have to consider whether or not the income tax sharing provisions applied to you. And those are required by statute. If you are going to exempt more than 75% of the project for more than 10 years, you have to give the school district 45 business days notice that you intend to do this, and they do have approval rights. Compensation is not mandatory, but most school districts will require some form of compensation in exchange for their approval. If they do not approve the TIF and actually take action to disapprove it by board action, you can still do a 10-year 75% TIF, but you cannot do anything in excess of that without board approval. Compensation to school districts can take a variety of forms. The most common is monetary compensation based on some amount of the tax revenue that they would potentially be foregoing. But it can take the form of services, it can take the form of an asset. We had one TIF project where land was given by the developer involved to the school district to build a new school on. So it does not have to be money, but that's the most common. In some cases, lump sum payments are made up front. In some cases, lump sum payments are made towards the end of a project. Most of the time, it's a steady annual stream of compensation payments based on the amount of TIF revenue that's generated from the project every year. Does anybody have any questions on sort of the basics?
So as long as we stay at the 75 and 10-year level, we don't have to worry about dealing with any compensation to other entities?
Correct, so long as you don't have an income tax.
Which we don't.
You don't now, but the TIF is 10 years. If that changes during the 10-year period of time, you have to realize that those statutes would apply to you if an income tax were to come about in the future. It doesn't now, so it's easy to say, oh, I don't have anything to think about. But should things change with respect to that, that will still apply regardless of the date with which you did the TIF. It will be on an annual kind of basis.
So if the project did have $1 million in payroll plus, how would that, and we implemented a earnings tax, we'll say, how would that affect the TIF then?
Okay. If they generate $1 million or more in payroll, then you have to, and you did not compensate them for lost property taxes, you have to share the income tax earnings off of the entire payroll, not just the payroll over $1 million, but the entire payroll, up to 50%. You are allowed to deduct the amount of your infrastructure improvements on an annual cost basis from the amount of your earnings tax, but there are limits in the statute such that the minimum you can drop it down to is 35% of the payroll taxes would have to go to the school district. The maximum would be 50%. So depending on your infrastructure improvement costs and how you're paying for that, the earnings tax sharing could be anywhere between 35 and 50% on an annual basis from that project, not from your citywide earnings tax, just from the earnings tax on that project.
So one thing I've also looked at is a TIF district.
Mm-hmm. The TIF district is used in two different ways. Before the statutes were changed, TIF district was used to refer to any TIF that involved more than one parcel. Nowadays, with the TIF incentive district statutes, it usually refers to an incentive district. This is the type of TIF that involves residential and involves many more requirements in order to put it into place. You can still do what we refer to as a commercial-only TIF for more than one parcel. You can do multiple parcels at the same time under one TIF ordinance, or you can do multiple parcels separately under their own TIF ordinance. If you're doing them all at the same time and the properties are adjacent to each other, there's no real benefit to doing them on individual ordinance basis. But if you're going to do multiple properties and you're going to do them for 10 years, 75%, but you don't know when some of the properties are going to actually develop, you might not want to include them in a TIF now when property A is going to develop if you don't know when property C is going to develop, because you might be using up part of your 10 years of service payment generation when there's nothing to generate service payments on.
Okay.
So you may choose to include A and B today and say, well, we intend to include C, but now is not the right time. We'll include that in a separate ordinance later. If the properties are in close proximity, and depending on the circumstances, the infrastructure improvements which you designate for each of the parcels may overlap. You may be able to spend money from parcel A on the same road improvement that you're going to be spending money from B on and C on when it develops later in the future. So you do not have to have a separate public infrastructure improvement that is only paid from A and a different one for B. The public infrastructure improvement may be similar or overlapping for the different parcels, whether you pass the ordinances all at once or at different times based on when you think development is most likely to occur. If you're doing a 30-year TIF, it's a little less of a concern, the timing, but you'd be surprised at how many jurisdictions have TIF'd larger tracts of land to find out 15 years later that nothing has happened on those properties still, and they've used up 15 years of TIF generating time and haven't generated any money on those.
Who decides if the infrastructure applies to that project?
This is somewhat of a question without a definite yes or no answer, okay? So the next question is, well, who's going to tell us we're wrong? Council makes the decision about which improvements are benefited because of the development, or that the infrastructure is necessary in order to entice the development. The statute imposes a benefit test that says direct or indirect benefit. As I explained earlier, either the infrastructure is needed to bring the company there. There's no water service. Well, Company A is not coming if you don't extend the water line at least up to you can't do the hookup from the street to them, but if there's not even any water line running in front of the street, Company A is not coming. So the water line extension is needed for them to come. If the company is going to involve a lot of truck traffic, and you deem that your road is too narrow to handle the turns, or the intersection needs to have turn lanes added or wider shoulders, these are improvements that you deem are necessary for the company to come. If the company is going to involve a lot of additional car traffic, let's say, but you have roads in place. The roads exist, and cars go. But you make a decision that says it's going to increase the volume of cars in that area, and for some distance, you may make the determination that extra lanes need to be added to that road, or extra signalization, and so forth. Even if Company A says, we're locating here, all the infrastructure we need is here, we don't need anything in order to locate here. You may decide that you're going to impact our existing traffic flow in such a way that we need to make some improvements to handle that and to accommodate that increase in traffic. If you are going to borrow money and issue debt to pay for the infrastructure improvement, your bond counsel will also weigh in, because they'll have to give an opinion on the debt that is issued and your ability to repay it from the TIF. So to the extent that you are paying for an improvement in cash, the decision rests with council and what you are comfortable with and your engineers can support. To the extent that you need to issue debt, there will be other people at the table who will weigh in, because they may be asked to give opinions. The state auditor will review the books on an annual basis when they review the rest of your books, and they may or may not question certain expenditures out of the TIF fund. Typically, they will defer to council's legislative action in declaring the public improvement necessary, but they may ask questions. Your residents may ask questions, may ask for justification for an expenditure from this fund, for that fund, for this improvement or that improvement. So there is not a book that says these are all okay and these aren't. It's almost always a facts and circumstance analysis that you as council first and foremost have to be comfortable with, and then you have to see who else needs to weigh in on that determination and who else is going to be at the table for that project.
Okay.
Procedurally, to do a TIF, you don't need the property owner's permission to do the TIF. You decide which property or properties you want to include in a TIF or to exempt at any particular time. Because the service payments in lieu of taxes are not more than the taxes they're already paid, the difference to them financially doesn't exist. They don't pay more because you put a TIF into place. They pay the same as they would with or without the TIF. It's where the money goes after they pay it that changes. So you have the ability to decide with or without the property owner's consent that you are doing the TIF. You pass a resolution after giving the proper notifications As we talked about, on a commercial only, you need to notify the school district and the joint vocational school district. If you were doing an incentive district tip, you would probably also have to notify the county, and there may be other notifications. If you're doing a commercial only tip, you can sign the DTE exemption application. After you send your notices to the school district, wait your 14 days, you pass your ordinance. You have to send that ordinance to the county auditor and to the State Department of Development. Then, in order for the money to actually be redistributed under the TIF and the service payments to be imposed, you have to file a Department of Tax and Equalization exemption application form for that property. We recommend that you file a separate form for each parcel, because if there is any problem with the taxes on any of the parcels being delinquent at the time you file the exemption application, the state will not process it for any of the properties included on that application. We recommend that a separate application be filed with respect to each parcel number, so that if one has a problem, they all don't have a problem. You can sign the DTE exemption application as the municipality that is exempting the property. If you are doing an incentive district tip, you would need to hold a public hearing before you pass your ordinance. That is not a requirement on a commercial only tip. However, there are some differences in the lien priority status of the TIF exemption if you sign the exemption application versus the property owner signing the exemption application. If the property owner signs the exemption application or files a consent to the exemption application, then the service payments in lieu of taxes take first lien priority status, just the same as all real estate taxes. If you file the exemption application and sign it without the property owner's consent, you have first priority lien status on the service payments unless and until some other exemption is applied for and granted. Now, in some cases, you're in charge of deciding whether you're going to grant a CRA exemption on a piece of property that you already tipped. But you are not in charge of deciding whether a change of use for religious or educational purposes is filed and approved. That's done at the state level. So if you start out with a commercial property and after 5 or 6 years the commercial venture decides this isn't working for me, I'm closing up shop and I'm selling my property, to the extent that he sells it to a church and they turn the property into a church, they may qualify for a religious use exemption and they may no longer have to pay property taxes. If the original owner signs the DTE form, the TIF will take precedence over that property tax exemption, and they will not be able to get that property tax exemption until the TIF runs out. If you sign the exemption application without their permission, their religious use exemption, assuming all the other rules are met, will be granted, and the TIF will no longer receive any money from that property because the religious use exemption will take precedence. So that is the distinction in terms of who signs the DTE form, the actual exemption application. You can, but you need to be aware that if something happens to the property, it could qualify for another exemption without your permission. Other exemptions, like I said, CRAs, you have to approve them anyway, so you're going to make a conscious decision as to whether or not you want that to preempt or not by granting it in the first place.
So you brought up that scenario, it just brought a new one to my mind. It's like, okay, say we have the DTE signed by the property owner.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 years from now, 6 years from now, something happens and they bulldoze the whole lot. Mm-hmm. What happens then?
The amount of money that you receive is based on increase in value from what we refer to as the base value, what some county auditors refer to as the historical value. So the value that exists today, let's take for example, let's say the property's worth $100,000 today and there's nothing on it. Company comes in and puts $1 million building on it, so the property's worth $1.1 million right now. $100,000 of value is what we refer to as the base value or the historical value. The $100,000 will continue to be taxed and pay taxes, and those taxes will continue to be distributed to all of the taxing entities. The $1 million of additional value after today will be exempted under the TIP. It will be replaced with service payments. The service payments generated on that $1 million will go into your TIP fund. 5 years down the road, they bulldoze the building, tornado happens, the tornado bulldozes the building. If the value after the bulldozing or the tornado is $100,000 or less, the TIF will get nothing until something else is built on that property. Let's say that they tear down 2/3 of the building and leave 1/3 of the building. And let's just say the county auditor values that third of the building at $300,000. You will get $300,000 worth of value, the revenue generated from that. The $100,000 that's land value will still be taxes. So if it bulldozes to the point where the remaining value is at or below your base value, you will not receive any money into the TIP. This is more of a concern in a redevelopment context than in a vacant land context. But it does happen. Buildings do disappear. In a redevelopment context, this is a more of a concern, because if you have an existing building on a property, let's say you have a property that has some buildings on it and it's worth $1 million today. When you put the TIF in place, your base value is going to be at $1 million. You tear the building down and put up a new building that's worth $2 million, you're going to see $1 million base value still go the way of normal taxes, and $1 million of new value go the way of TIF. Now let's say 5 or 6 years down the road, the building doesn't go away, but the business goes out, property starts to deteriorate, and the auditor devalues it to $1.2 million, or worse, $800,000. It's now worth less than it was before you ever started. It's below the base value. You're not going to be receiving any service payments off of that project. So value as it changes over time does impact the TIF service payments. And while, 5 years ago we were in a situation where property values did nothing but go up, that is not the case in the last couple of years. So things do happen to property value that can affect your service payments, and not necessarily in the way that you want it to.
Okay.
And you are not necessarily in control of the valuation. In other words, depending on what kind of an agreement you do or don't enter into with the property owner. And you can do a TIF without entering into any agreements at all with the property owner. If you have no agreement that restricts their ability to go in and ask for a reappraisal, a devaluation of their property values, they may do that at any point during the life of a TIF.
Now, what if two municipalities have the land sits on two different ones? How?
The county auditor has to apportion the value based on the jurisdictional line. You cannot TIF something that is not in your jurisdiction. Vice versa, they can't TIF something that's not in their jurisdiction. So the county auditor will have to apportion the value based on where it sits. And the real fun is when you not only cross jurisdictional lines, but you cross county lines. In this particular case, you may only be dealing with one county auditor, so they're going to apportion it, on a sort of a uniform basis. It's a lot of fun when you cross county lines and you have to deal with two county auditors to figure out the value in the different jurisdictions. So it is up to the county auditor to decide how much value is on each half of the line. And sometimes you may say, well, it's going to be a 50,000 square foot building and there's going to be 25,000 square feet on both sides. But if all of the building over here is office and all the building over here is warehouse, they may not split the value 50-50. Likewise, depending on how they position the building, this jurisdiction may wind up with parking lot and this jurisdiction may wind up with building. So it does matter when the site is in multiple jurisdictions. It will affect the value that results for each of the respective jurisdictions. And you can have a project where one jurisdiction TIFs it and the other jurisdiction doesn't. That both jurisdictions don't have to TIF it. You TIF what's in yours. If they don't want to TIF what's in theirs, that's up to them. They may not. You may both TIF it. Neither of you may TIF it. What one does is not dependent on what the other does. But the value is not necessarily in your control.
Any other questions?
I'll just mention a little bit about how you can spend the money. Under TIF, you can pay for projects in cash, which means you can wait and accumulate the money as it comes in before you actually go forward with the project. Or you can issue debt against the revenue stream and finance the project and do the project now and use the TIF money to pay back the debt. You don't have to issue debt. You can put the TIF in place, accumulate the revenue until you feel comfortable with the revenue stream before you go forward with the project or any financing that may be required for the project. You can do some of each. You can finance one project and you can pay cash for other projects if the revenue stream is more than you expected.
Feel comfortable? Well, thank you very much. Julie, do you want to introduce the next guest?
I don't think Mr. Rui's going to. Are you going to speak?
No.
Okay, Brenda covered it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome. Julia has our information if you need anything in the future.
If anybody needs any information, give it to Julia. Skip over the mayor's report and go to approval of the bills. Everybody have a copy of the bills? Anyone have a comment on the bills? Chuck, are you all right?
I'm fine with it.
Everybody seems fine. I'll make a motion to accept the bills, please. Somebody make that motion.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
First and a second, roll call vote.
Mr. Dickerson.
Yay.
Ms. Gerber.
Yay.
Mr. Pollard.
Yay.
Mr. Campbell.
Yay.
Mr. Thacker.
Yay.
Ms. Elliott.
Yay.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you, Kevin. Chief, police chief report. You are up next.
Council, Mayor? Go over a few things here. Of course, the noticeable events that we've had in the last couple weeks. These aren't all of them, but these are just a couple of the highlights. Person you always hear are Crime Stoppers, and the person that reported this actually led to the arrest of a female living inside of Amelia. And we responded to the tip and arrested her. These crime tips are supported by funds and money that's from fundraisers throughout the community, Claremont, Hamilton, all those places. Channel 9 is going on. As a matter of fact, they're going to have a 9 days of Crime Stoppers where one day may be at your local theater, or one day maybe raise money there, one day maybe at a restaurant, and one day maybe there, but that's going to start up in the beginning of April. So you'll be hearing that. One of the highlights was the Amelia Police Department assisted Claremont County Task Force in apprehending a drug trafficker that operated out of his home, which was directly across from Amelia Elementary School. Sometimes they don't think where they're going to be trafficking, but within 1,000 feet of the school, the charges always escalate. So he was put into jail, transported by us, and put in jail on drug trafficking on 2 felony counts. So we want him out of there. So administrative-wise, we have a total of 6 officers that will be attending training in the months of March, April, and May. The schools are free through a product, and they're their own schools, and it's nice to have that free. And some of the reasons those are free is because they took a lot of PATA itself took a lot of the booklets, the big major booklets that come out and distributed statewide. They took that away, so more online viewing was now available, and from the savings in that cost, now they can afford to offer schools to police departments that their officers need training like we do. And some of the meetings I have, the Claremont County Chiefs Association meeting, one of the highlights there were the FBI reported that IRS always has a problem this time of year from taxes. These fly-by-night tax people that just happen to hang a sign on their house saying taxes here, a lot of them are take advantage of the people who do their taxes, and before they know it, they skim a couple thousands off their taxes, and they won't know it until after April, and by that time they're gone. They always have a big problem with this. So my suggestion is to make sure that everyone in the Amelia and surrounding area has their taxes done by a reputable tax preparer, or one that's been around for quite a while, and you actually know them. Also, they had mentioned that they have, as far as identity theft goes, the most likely targets are the ages between 20 and 30, and the reason that is because they're into all on this online buying stuff. They don't go to, if you have kids like I do, you know they like the online stuff, and along with that, they get involved with unsecured websites, and which steals their identity, or they get credit cards and apply for those, and sometimes the parents even put their name down on there, and they're all in trouble pretty soon because somebody has identity thefts on them. They also, unfortunately, they target over the age of 55 also, and those are people that seem, for some reason, they think they won huge amounts of money through an email type thing. It's always that, if it's too good to be true, well, it's not true. And we actually had some people go to Walmart and wire money to somewhere they have no idea, expecting a whole bunch of money back. And so don't ever go to Walmart to wire money. Don't ever go to Walmart to try to get your grandchild out of jail in Canada or somewhere, because I've actually had that. And they're really good at manipulating older folks on the phone. And they say, hey, your granddaughter, your grandson's in trouble. He's in Canada. He's arrested, and the person on the phone says, who is it? Is it Bobby, or is it Robert, or is it Daniel? And then, well, they have their name, and then they go, it's Daniel, and we need you to go to Walmart and send the money in the fund so we can get him out and get him home. And they take advantage of that because the grandparents now, they don't want to tell the parents because, now they trust you. There's a trust there, and they just do this all the time. So be very careful of that. That's not true. So never go to Walmart to fund money. Whatever money to go there. The public safety on the back page, I'm going to get to my recommendations here in a second, but I've got January 11 down to January 12. They're pretty compatible, except January 12 is a little escalated there, and that's pretty typical. The calls for service and the stops, the warnings and everything seem to be higher. My recommendations, if you want to turn to the next page, under recommendation of hiring, I'm going to recommend at this time that we hire one additional full-time officer. And this full-time officer is based on the test results from Iowa Solutions. It's an outfit that actually give tests, and I want that selection to come from part-time that's already here in Amelia. We have excellent part-time officers, and any one of those officers would be an asset to this department. After almost 3 months of being here, it's easy to tell that these guys got skills and what's needed to be a full-time police officer. Along with the Iowa Solutions test, a little bit about that test. This is a company that gives tests nationwide. They specify Ohio, and what they would do is we would request so many tests, however many the part-time are interested in taking it, and then it's cheap. It's about $10 a test. They send it to you. We sit down. The guys take the test. I don't even look at them. I package them up. I send them back, and then in just a few days they come back with the test results. Between that and the interview process would be easy to determine through that process which one would score the highest, next highest, and so on like that. And along with the hiring, I would like to hire 2 other part-time officers, one to replace the full-time officer and one additional part-time officer, because as time goes on, officers, they have more vacation time, or maybe we would get injured or sick just a little more often, and we would need those part-time officers to replace the full-time. And as warm weather starts, it's going to start really escalating, and I wanted to put a part-time officer on every Friday and Saturday night, because in April it's really going to take off here. If you would look at this, if you're a visual learner like me, and look up here and see this green area represents the officer that works from 5P to 5A, that we always have to replace a part-time officer in one of those spots. We have 2 part-time officers who work the day, or 2 full-time officers that work the days, and only 1 that works the night. So when he's off, then we have to get all this filled, and the only way that we can do that is through part-time officers. Now, to have this part-time officer work all these green areas, it doesn't leave much room for any other part-time officers to work Friday and Saturday night, because we've got to fill up the one officer first, right? So this is kind of the dilemma we have here in doing that. I also want to recommend that these guys have, and you know this more than me, but these guys have been, I guess you would call a pay freeze for the last 4 years. And my recommendation is that we give these guys across the board, whether it be full-time or part-time, a rate increase. And I have included that. If you would take out this little piece of paper right there, it's easy to see. If you would look at me and go down to FT Patrol, which is a full-time, and look under the 5%, the 5% increase, if you would look at that, it would be 82 cents more an hour. It's easy to see, and it would adjust his full-time salary to that $37,172 a year, as far as just his salary goes. The hourly rate would go from $16.38 to $17.02. Now that's at 5%. If you go down across and skip the 4 and the 3, that gives you kind of a visual area of kind of how much it is to a dollar, to the dollar rate, the annual rate, and the actual percent rate. So it'd be easy for you to see, if you're comfortable in doing that, what percent that the council would feel like they would be comfortable in giving the officers their percent raise. And in concessions of that, I would like to end part-time vacation, and I would like to end part-time sick time. And the reason I would like to do that is because I would feel that these officers would like the pay increase more than the actual vacation, and it's also very confusing, I would think. As a matter of fact, the police officers, as far as police departments go, there might be another police officer out there that offers this, but I don't know of any. So it's just like with any other job. I just don't know where that would happen at, the sick time, vacation time for part-time. So I would like to put that effort towards the other end of the pay increase. Also, I would like to recommend that the work week be 42 hours or 84 hours bi-weekly. 86, I don't know where that came from, but the regular 2-week shift turns out to be 84 hours, not 86 hours. And by your ordinance, it's 86. And I don't know where that came from. So that could be fixed pretty well. Recommendation of vests, those are due in April, and I'm contacting it's the Ohio Justice Bureau that I think pays for half of the vests. We've got a lot of vests expired that they're wearing, and that is one thing that we got to get on for liability's sake. We got to get these guys in the right vests. And so by April, I would like to see everybody wearing the current vest, and I think we're probably, if not more, probably 80% of them are expired. So we got to get on that. I would like to pay off cruiser number 17, which is the 2011 Ford Victoria. I called for the final at the River Hills Bank. We owe $15,302 as of 2/17. There are no payoff penalties for that. So I would like to end that and pay that off and save herself almost $800, $700, $800 in interest over the next. I think we have 2 years and maybe 3 months left on that. Now, maybe to the good stuff. This is all the carryover from 2011 is right around $107,000 that we carried over into this year. Through drastic cuts, and these guys willing to do those 12-hour shifts, and these guys have went all out and saving the village money, and they did that through a stress level that was, I can't imagine what these officers went through the last year. So they did that with flying colors, and they've sacrificed, and so I think it's time we use that and get things going here. The budget for the certified police revenue for 2012 is $603,000. And for a ballpark figure, to estimate how much we'll spend in 2012 is just a ballpark with some of the unknowns here, came out to $188,000 that we'll spend in 2012. Now, even if I'm off 15%, that's only $217,000. Even if I'm off, and sometimes you might, you hear the word, you may take more than you realize on money. So I think we're even safe there. So that being said, I think that's all my recommendations. I just have one more thing, and that's about parking tickets. And I know that may be trivial, but parking tickets really add up. And the way you've got your parking ticket situation, it's a full-fledged parking violation, like you would write somebody a speeding ticket just for a parking violation. And I suggest that we move from a $95 ticket to these kind of tickets. This is from another community, and these are, I would like them to be $10 tickets. As a matter of fact, I drafted up a little, maybe an ordinance that you might want to borrow or you might want to use, and I'll give that to Julie or let her look at it. And these are from $10, say these are $10 tickets, as to give you an example. And the car's parked the wrong way, and he's out there talking to you, and you go around and show him something in the back, and he comes out, and there's an officer writing him a $95 ticket for that. I think it would be a lot easier for them to accept a $10 ticket and to pay that. As a matter of fact, I don't know that the officer would write the $95 ticket because it's harsh. It's really harsh to write somebody a $95 ticket. But they would understand a lot more than a $10 ticket. If they didn't pay it in 7 days, that $10 ticket would turn into a $20 ticket. If they didn't pay in 30 days, then we would issue the full ticket to mayor's court. And it's just as simple as that. And we're going to have to really think of, and plus you can write these really quick. You can write these like in 5 minutes. And you just write it through the carbon copy right here, like this, just to the car itself. And then you just tear that off, keep that, and then stick that in the window right here. And it even has a place where they can mail it in. So it's pretty simple, it's logical, it's quick. And if we're thinking about doing most of the parking in the future up at that other end, we need a fast way to write fire violations and all that kind of stuff. So instead of somebody sitting there taking 10 minutes or 15 minutes to write one of those full tickets. So we have to, I think we really have to, and plus I think revenue-wise, you're going to turn out a lot better in your revenues than you ever would a few $95 tickets that would make people upset more. People get upset with parking tickets no matter what, and I know that, but anyway, just give you something to think about, and I think that's the route we should go. Any questions or comments about anything?
So you've talked to your part-timers, and they're okay with losing their vacation, and
No, I haven't said a word about that.
okay.
I haven't, but they're going to have, I think they're going to have to trust me, and I think if we're to move ahead, I think this is the route we got to go. Some of those, tell you the truth, some of those part-timers have to use it at the end of the year, or they'll lose it. So I don't know. I know maybe getting paid vacation is good, but I just can't see somebody coming here and saying, "Oh, okay, I have to work my 12-hour shift, but I think I'll call in sick," because it just doesn't make any sense. So I think they would rather have it, and it'd be better in the long run if you just did away with that and did the pay raises, across the board like that. I think then the guys who want to come in here and work, they would benefit from that more than the other, I think, in the long run.
So right now we have a balance. We carried over $107,000. Have you done the what the percentage of each of these would be as far as taking that away from that our carryover, or what it would cost us totally?
Totally, as far as fringe benefits and things like that, and
For the pay increase, yeah.
per year, I would think. Well,
So we have three.
When we did this, 3 full-time.
Okay.
We pay them out, plus the part-time benefits. And when we did this budget here with the $188,000, we included an extra person in that.
Okay.
And we included, I think he included an extra one. And I think fiscal said that that if we're going to put a full-time person on, now's the time to do that. And that was a couple months ago. And then since then, we've got the revenue, or the carryover, and it kind of proves that now. And then our guaranteed revenue, what we'll have for the upcoming year, I think we'll see. I think even though we would hire those and do pay raises, I think we'll see a plus, more of a plus then. And especially, we're working hard and our spirits are high, and I think everything's turning around, and I think we're doing great.
Done a good job.
Any other questions, Randy?
Yeah, if I could, I'll make a couple comments there, David. I know I talked to you about those tickets, and I think that's a great idea. Because, with the upcoming development we've got coming, a large portion of the parking will be on us, and it'll be our responsibility to take care of that. The second thing is, you gave council a whole bunch of information to look at. So I'm thinking maybe we bring as far as the hiring and the end of the part-time vacation, those things we bring up at the March 13th meeting, let council have time to digest that information.
Of course, yes.
But knowing that we do have the money, I would like to see council move forward to make a motion on these vests. I think it's something needed. We have the money for it, so just going to throw it out at council and see if somebody'd like to make a motion to go ahead and
Do we
go
need a
forward with the
motion, or
vests.
or are you gonna
The
come back
bulletproof
with?
vests.
Oh, absolutely.
The,
I'll make the motion.
Well,
I'll
what
make
do
a
you think the
cost.
cost?
Yeah, that
What does it
was,
cost?
What's the
Well,
cost?
the cost of a vest would be around $700, and I'm not sure, but we are slated, and this was years ago, and I think the vest lasts between 4 and 5 years, I think. 5. And then we're slated to come, and they're going to revisit this in April, because I already contacted them and said, yeah, we got $1 million down in April. So apparently a couple or three is going out in April. But I think we even need a little bit more than that. So if they pay half of at least 3 or 4 of those things, and they cost $700 a piece, that will be saving a lot of money just in that right there.
do each of you have your own? Well, I know you do.
Yeah. They all have, for sanitary reasons, they all have.
Okay. So we would look at
They're all
about
fitted.
$350 then a piece
They're all
for
fitted.
each one,
That's what I
and we
was-
need a total of
Yes.
9. Is that right?
Or just the 3
Mine,
or 4?
not- well, I just got one, so not me.
Okay.
Adams is new too. He just got his last year.
Did he?
Yeah, he's got a new one he got last year.
So we're looking at just 7.
But there's gonna be at least 3 on the grant that should be covered.
Yeah. I mean, I would leave it.
I just
do
want
we-
to make sure you weren't exceeding the $25,000.
Oh, no, we're nowhere near the 25,000.
We ain't got there yet.
Yeah, don't worry about that. That'll be the next question. No.
I mean, can we give him, do we have to make a motion, or can we?
You should make a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
the
Go
purchase.
ahead.
I got one question first.
Sure.
Kevin, our donations to the police, we have police donations fund, what's that at right now?
Thought it 37?
It's around 37.
That's what I
I'm not
thought.
sure, I haven't looked.
Is there anything slated for that?
Last I looked.
No, the one donation was for the National Night Out, and the others have just been accumulating with no restrictions.
Yeah, it was in here somewhere. I think it was in this one, but I thought it was at 37.
So
Right at
basically that
37.
would cover at half price, well, you said only 3 or 4 at half price? Oh, yeah, see, gotta say that too.
That's what that was supposed to be.
Yeah,
Is
Some of
that,
that,
okay,
yeah.
well, that's,
Yeah.
well, I asked what was
3
slated
years
for.
ago.
Okay.
That was for
Mr.
the
Campbell?
amount.
Yes.
Currently about $3,300, that was the balance at the start of the year, and nothing's been paid out of it so far.
Okay.
Could you make the motion?
Yes, I make the
I'll
motion.
second the
I don't like to get shot at. I like to do the shooting, but I don't want to get shot at.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, what exactly
I'd
is your
really kind of
motion?
like to see a total
Oh,
cost on it
the-
before we
Who's supposed to buy them, the chief?
vote on it.
Motion for the chief to equip the
But I don't know. I mean, I really,
police
I don't
department.
like handing out blank checks.
Required.
Do we know?
We're not gonna
So
have-
we're
No,
sure how
it-
much is it going to be?
Actually,
Do we
it's-
have a grand?
Until April, it's impossible for me to tell
Tell
you.
you. So my inclination would be to wait until we
We
get.
can wait till April and see, but keep in mind that that's a couple months away, and they are expired on some of those guys, so I
Okay.
just like.
There's some expired now. We currently got okay. What if we $3,300 would be more than enough to get that rolling, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Would there be any opposition to amend it to spend just the $3,300 out of the police fund to start with?
Well, as I
I
heard.
think
that-
he just needs to get what they need to get.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him in any.
No, I'm not putting a limit on
No, I don't
what
put
they
a
have
limit on
to
it.
spend. I don't think they'd appreciate
Whatever-
us putting a
whatever it
limit on
takes.
their lives. I'm sorry, y'all are only worth $3,300.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I want a cost before I approve anything. I don't feel comfortable saying.
I understand, Chuck.
You see where I'm coming from.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm saying is that you tell me 700, 350. I
Yeah,
want
and
a
it is-
total.
it
I don't
is
care if it's
local.
$1,000. We got to do it.
Yeah.
I just want to know how much it's going to cost, so that we don't say 1,000 now and come back at 10,000.
I just know that 700 figured because mine is the newest one, and mine costs about
700.
right at that. So
Chief,
that
what's
was-
your opinion on the guns? Where do we stand since you've been here?
Pardon me, there's a
Yeah,
motion on the
let's get the
floor.
motion and we'll go ahead and, we've got a motion and a second, so if there's no other discussion.
And my understanding is the motion is to authorize the chief to acquire the vests.
Correct.
Can we use some of the funding from the police donations to pay for it, or we don't need to do that? We've got more than enough to cover it.
We've
Does
got
it
more
have
than
to
enough
be
in the budget
specified
to
where
cover.
the money comes from?
If we're going to use the donation fund, it would have to be, right?
I think
There was a-
you're gonna use a special fund.
I mean, if
Where
that's-
would you-
The police donations fund currently has no restrictions on it. As I said, the only money that was restricted was for the National Night Out,
Okay.
and there's $250 of that left.
So if there's excess, if the purchase is in excess of the 3,300, this is just gonna come out of the regular police fund.
Right, it'd come out of,
I mean, you can
Material
you can
supplies,
modify your motion that the 3,300 be used if you want to.
Okay.
Do we have to
It's
define,
his. Huh?
do we have to define the fund right now?
That's what I was saying. Do we have to define that the initial amount come out of the donation, or do we just make a motion that they're allowed to use?
You can just make the motion.
Okay, then we're good.
Okay, roll call vote, Karen.
Mr. Dickerson. Ms. Gerber.
Yay.
Mr. Pollock.
Yay.
Mr. Campbell.
Yay.
Mr. Thacker.
Yay.
Ms. Zelia.
Yay.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Don't know about this other one now. I was gonna, we can discuss this, the payoff on the cruiser, because if we go ahead and pay that $15,200, then we'll have that savings.
There's a vest right there.
Please.
There's a vest savings
Yep.
right there.
So
Yeah, we got the
that
vest
was going to
repaired.
be the second motion that I'd like to see council bring across to have, so we can have that savings on that
Make a
cruiser.
motion, we play off the cruiser.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
$15,200 exactly is the price. Does anyone have any other comments?
Don't wait too long.
I think that would be one I would like to discuss in finance first.
I will say that based on current appropriations, it would be necessary to adjust appropriations to the principal and interest accounts within the police fund.
Okay.
But not writing it off, to bring up in the next council meeting. if
What
we're
is
going
the
through.
next?
March 13th.
No.
Oh, the next finance?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it the fifth?
Yeah, we'll be the fifth.
I'll retract it as long as you guys will have that information for us on the 13th.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chief.
Can we talk about your raises?
Sure.
Do we see any problem with initially, or with talking about raises, or do you also want to give
I
us a
think
little
we'll
bit
need
of
to go
feedback?
through because of the insurance costs, where we come in on the insurance.
As
That'll probably be another good thing for finance.
Yeah, that's right.
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, will you come back with a percentage? I mean, once we know
Yeah.
what our
Oh, yeah.
stuff will,
Yeah,
then hopefully we'll have an answer.
because
On
we'll
the-
know by next week on the health insurance and
Because
All the
I'd
figures
really
on
like,
that, so.
yeah, I'd really like to see them
Mhm.
get a raise.
Councilman, I might have left too early. You mentioned something about guns.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Just trying to get what we already addressed, and then we can move on.
We know that's another need, and I just wanted your opinion on.
My opinion on guns is I feel that every police department should carry the same caliber of weapon. And that's because if there would be something out there where we would have to, I hope this never happens, but if we would have to exchange bullets or mags or whatever, we'd have the same exact thing to do that. Right now, I believe we have 3 different calibers on our department, a 45, a 9, and a 40. So I'd like us all to go to a specific caliber.
Can you get us a cost analysis to purchase those?
Does Club make a gun or somebody like that?
Clock.
Glock, yes, they do.
I wasn't sure what the name was, but I know they had approached us at one time
That might be a good.
for the guns to do a deal in the purchasing where they were going to give us a really big break. So you might.
Several police departments carry Glock.
Okay. So
All the television carries clocks.
You're right.
Lock right there.
So if weapons were purchased, they would be required to use those weapons and not their own.
That's right. It would be a policy and procedure that they would carry that, and they would have to train and qualify on that same gun. And every time they qualify, that serial number would be checked to make sure that that was the same gun that qualified the year before. So it's
Would those
pretty strict.
weapons be left here? Would they be?
No, they'd be in the care and control of each officer. And then upon periodic inspections to make sure that everything is clean and good working order and all that.
anything else for Chief? All right. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Fire Chief report.
Good evening.
Amen.
I'll be brief. Our annual report, I'm anticipating will be done for the township here in the next month. As soon as that's out, I'll get Chief Jeff a copy of that as well. Monthly report, I'll have a hard copy for you tomorrow afternoon. I'll email to each of you. For the month of January, we got 40 EMS calls for village. We transported 42 folks. 7 fire calls for village, nothing of any significance. A couple of rubbish fires, dumpster fires, a couple of motor vehicle accidents. That's all most significant. So, other than that, everything pretty much status quo with Union Township and in the village. Any questions, comments?
Doing an awful lot of running up here.
A whole bunch of running everywhere.
I do have one now.
Yes,
With the new project going in, possibly up the street,
Trover's.
yeah, how would that be handled through the 2 different fire districts?
What would happen, and I haven't seen the plans on that, but I think a major portion of that is in Batavia Township. A small portion is in the village, if I remember right. I may be wrong.
I think it's opposite.
Maybe it's opposite. Okay, I'm sorry, you're correct. You are correct. So basically what would happen there is that we would sit down with Pierce Township, what's in the village of Amelia we would cover, and then we'll have to work with Pierce Township. What would make sense to me is one entity cover it all. But again, that's a call under jurisdiction. If they give up that jurisdiction, sure, we'll definitely cover it. But a prime example was up at the old Kroger's, where that didn't occur. Because there's a fire station right across the street, but it's in Pierce's Township area.
Batavia Township.
Or Batavia Township area. And they wouldn't relinquish that, just the way this way it was. So that's a call liability-wise for us. I just can't say, well, we're just going to take that, because we're out there hanging out there with no jurisdictional boundary, no jurisdictional right even to do anything with it.
Now, is that handled between the fire departments or?
But that'd be handled between the fire departments, and bottom line, if they want to stand firm and say, no, that's ours, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't touch it. We're hopefully we'll be able to come up with an agreement that would work for everybody.
Okay.
And obviously, most importantly, for the citizens and users of the store. But again, to give you a direct answer, yea or nay, I can't do that until we have some talk to Pierce Township.
Okay.
You have to have standpipes on that, right?
We'll do sprinkler.
Yeah, so who would be responsible for the standpipe and the sprinkler system when it's split?
Depending on where the standpipe and sprinkler system.
Yeah, it's where you gonna put the standpipe?
Right. We've done the review on the plans, which has worked well. So we've designated where that needs to be, sprinkler wise, standpipe wise. So
It gets complicated.
It is. It's a huge store. Huge store.
Okay.
One man heck of a job. But I'll keep you posted on that tomorrow we hear
Okay.
what we're going to work out. We'll definitely work toward the best interest of the citizens.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Rick, would you like to please come up and Give your report. Public Works report, Ricky Rowland.
Good evening, Council. Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to give you a brief summary of each individual thing because it is a long report. And so in addition to the routine maintenance that we have done, notable case things are like 20 South Deer Creek. We had on January 17th a flooding episode. One of the catch basins became clogged and the water carried over 3 different areas, probably 100, 150 feet in that area. So they got about 8 to 10 inches deep, and we were able to alleviate that by opening up a catch manhole cover further down the line, which allowed the water to ready to go out to the creek that way. I contacted the Claremont County Water District, and they sent out a crew about a week later, and we moved the lines clear, and it's working fine now. So that was all taken care of. We have put new toilets into the building here as a recommendation from Midwest Plumbing because the old ones were not working well, and they said they were outdated. And apparently so with the new ones and the new pressure guidances that they have, they flush fine now. Tree at the Morris house, the dead tree that stood behind the Morris house became increasingly dangerous. And after talking to the mayor, we decided to have that taken down. Beech Trees took that down, but we will clear it as soon as the ground gets soft. Let's get equipment back there. We can't get back there right now without tearing up the yard. And the tree is not laying anywhere as it poses a problem. So we will get back in there as soon as everything solids up. Street cleaning, we have done a new way of street cleaning this year. We're using county personnel, people working off their fines, work crews. That way I have to just supply the driver of our truck and a dump truck and some brooms, and they do all the manual labor. That's worked out quite well. We've done it twice in the last month or so, and we have a lot of other projects lined up for those type of work crews, which will save us quite a little bit so that I don't have our part-time people to do those type of work or tie up the 2 little guys we have now doing that. The output is a lot larger. We can get more people out there and get a lot more done with a low cost to the village as an employee raise. Potholes, if you notice, there's a lot of potholes showing up again. We've been addressing those on a daily basis. We have had a lot of problems with Church Street again. I've filled that 3 or 4 times in the last 2 months, and we're about ready to go back out and put more in there. The only thing we can do with those at this point, because of the deterioration of the road, is to pack it with gravel, and that's what we're doing. If it's on a blacktop surface, I put blacktop, but usually it's the berms that's deteriorating and falling away. Because the street's narrow, and as they turn onto the street, they turn more onto the berm than to the street. Kept that in. We had a problem with trees in the park. The tree, we had a non-resident call about cutting up trees in our park that had fallen. The particular tree this resident called about was not in our area, it was in the subdivision area. However, they stated that they have in the past came into the parks and cut the trees that they found that was dead and lying. I told the resident and informed them that they're no longer going to do that practice because liabilities of their using chainsaws and that type of equipment in public areas is prohibited. And they gave me assurances they would not, but I also asked the chief to make sure, do look over that, make sure we don't have somebody sneaking in and doing that. I have noticed that situation occurring once before. We had a tree down. We marked it. The next day went out, it was gone. Apparently it was that person that removed it. So, although it saved us work, but it's not a liability. Catch basins on Cecilia, we had 2 that failed. They're basically a lot easier than fixing the ones on Main. It's a matter of cutting them out and setting new risers in. We've repaired one. We have the things to repair the other, just waiting for a good day to get in there, cut that out, pull it out. It takes about a day, day and a half to do that piece. And that will be done hopefully this week if we don't get a lot of rain. Since I wrote this report, we've had 3 catch basins along Main that is beginning to fail. One that I mentioned last fall that we was keeping an eye on, it's increasingly getting worse. We have done temporary repairs to them, and I talked to the concrete company that we get our concrete from. They'll be making concrete as early as mid-March, so we will begin replacing those catch basins. There are 3 on the eastbound lane. The sidewalls are starting to give loose, letting a hole develop on the edge, all the stuff's falling in. So we shored up the walls and have patched the holes, and we're keeping a daily watch on those. So those will be upcoming projects that you'll notice in mid-March and April. Salt usage, because of mild winter, we have used about 30 ton compared to 260 ton last year. It'll be a substantial savings. We won't notice the savings until next year because of the obligation we have to buy the salt that we had approved to buy for this year. That salt we'll be buying and storing, so next year we will not have to order near the salt. Probably about 40 to 50 ton compared to 200 ton that we ordered this year. So we're going to have at least 150, 180 ton over the salt bar in reserve. Drinking fountain, we replaced the drinking fountain due to the inability to cool, and the maintenance and the repair of that was going to be higher than a replacement. So we had to replace that this month. We have a problem on Deer Creek. I didn't make it over today to check on it, but it was supposed to be dropped over the weekend. There's a tree behind 38 Deer Creek that had died and broke off, and by falling over into other properties, it posed a grave danger to residents and kids playing in that area. It's in the area to where we have a retention pond and an easement area, so it's our tree. Once again, beech trees have been contracted to take that down, not to remove it because of the prices and the cost of that. We will do the same as the property gets dry enough to get back in there. Another thing I might mention, we need to make sure the residents are aware that that's not a dump site. There's a lot of old tars, trash, bottles, gas cans, and things like that thrown in that area. And they're using it for a dump site. So it is an area that's overgrown all year round because of it is a wooded area that we don't mow or just nature. But with everything's down in wintertime, by walking through there, you can see all that. Typically, we would not be in that area if it wasn't for this tree because it's behind all the properties and have to cross over easements and places to get to that property. One last situation is fence panels at the Oddfellows Cemetery. There are several that broke out. Some due to vandalism, some due I'm not sure what. I've had someone suggest a deer might have ran through it. Being it's a vinyl fence, they break the spindles out of the middle. I've replaced 2. We need to replace about 3 more. I'm waiting on Hatton's Fence Company to contact me back with a price. I talked to them a week or so ago, and I'll have to recall them because I haven't heard back. And that's about it. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Rick?
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and do a first reading on legislation. This is for the South Deer Creek. Amelia Village, Ohio, ordinance 02012-02, an ordinance by the Council of Amelia Village, Clermont County, Ohio, accepting dedication of a portion of South Deer Creek Drive and a portion of South Ridge Drive. So that was sort of the first reading. Go ahead and read the second legislation, which is ordinance 02012-03, an ordinance by the Council of Amelia Village, Clermont County, Ohio, authorizing the mayor and village physical officer to enter into an agreement to employ Joseph Candido as an independent contractor to serve as magistrate for mayor's court and declaring an emergency. We already use him, so right now I'm asking to waive the 3 readings on 3 separate dates.
I'll make a motion, we waive it.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other comment? Roll call vote, Kevin.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yay.
Ms. Gerber?
Yay.
Mr. Paula?
Yay.
Mr. Campbell?
Yay.
Mr. Thacker?
Yay.
Ms. Elliott?
Yay.
Passes 6-0.
Ordinance O 2012-03, an ordinance by the Council of Amelia Village, Claremont County, Ohio, authorizing the mayor and village physical officer to enter into an agreement to employ Joseph Candido as an independent contractor to serve as magistrate for mayor's court. This time, I'd like to make a council, there a motion for adoption.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Dickerson? Ms. Gerber?
Yay.
Mr. Paula?
Yay.
Mr. Campbell?
Yay.
Mr. Thacker?
Yay.
Ms. Elliott?
Yay.
Passes 6-0.
How much time do we have left? We have 5 minutes?
Oh, great.
All right, well, we're going to jump down to,
Mayor, you need to approve the emergency clause on that ordinance.
I thought we did that. We didn't do that?
No, you just approved the ordinance.
We did the emergency first.
No, you waived the 3 readings.
Oh, okay, you're right. So, an ordinance by council, ordinance 02012-03, an ordinance by the Council of Amelia Village, Claremont County, Ohio, authorizing the mayor and village physical officer to enter into an agreement to employ Joseph Candido as an independent contractor to serve as magistrate for mayor's court and declaring an emergency. We need a motion for that.
I need a motion to approve the emergency clause.
So moved.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Bob.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yay.
Ms. Gerber?
Yay.
Mr. Paula?
Yay.
Mr. Campbell?
Yay.
Mr. Thacker?
Yay.
Ms. Elliott?
Yay.
Passes 6-0.
That's that 3rd reading we put on the end of that I didn't see. Is that the new one? We do 3
Yeah.
now, right? Okay, that's what I thought. We used to only do 2, but we
Right.
added the 3rd.
And you won't need to read it each time, you just need to ask for approval of the emergency clause.
Okay.
So we have to do it one more time?
No.
We're good on this.
We're good. So now we do 3 times. We do the emergency, then we do the motion, then we
All
come
right.
back to approve the emergency clause, correct?
We waive the 3 readings.
Right.
Then we actually adopt the ordinance, and then you approve the emergency clause, because there might be a reason why you wouldn't want to adopt it as an emergency.
Okay,
You want to let her change the tape?
sure.